Remember yesterday I rambled on and on about how many cultural spots there are in Leipzig, and guess what? I found the answer. Well, back in the 1870s, Leipzig was the capital of what's called Gründerzeit era, or the economic boom, and that gave rise to about 15,000 cultural memorials. So thanks to that, we can enjoy Leipzig as it is today. And yeah, the first place that I'll go to this morning is the Bach Museum. So let's go.
The museum is actually a house of Bach's friend, Georg Heinrich Bose. Bach himself lived directly across from this house in the old St. Thomas's School next to the church where we visited yesterday. You may ask, well, why didn't they just set up a museum in St. Thomas's School then? And that's because it was demolished back in 1902, and the fact that Bach and Bose were good neighbors and Bach often stayed in his house make it an ideal spot for a museum in memory to Bach. The Bose family was very wealthy, which was why they were able to have this garden in their backyard, keeping in mind though that this is a house in the middle of the city. This is one of the organs Bach inspected from St. John's Church in Leipzig. The museum goes into details about Bach's daily life. This basically gives us a day in the life of Bach. He had to give rehearsals, instrumental lessons, prepare cantata, supervise boarding school, and even selling books and music notes. Children of the St. Thomas's School also had a jam-packed day. There were rules for them to follow, like even though they sing in a choir, the mindset that they should have is that they're there to listen, and in their downtime, they should read the Bible, not frolicking about or going out to the villages. There was also a room where you can choose the words and make it into a song, and this is what I came up with.
I'm now in the front of Leipzig Opera House, and the thing with visiting these opera houses in summer is that it's closed and you can't go in and see a performance. So if you had to choose, just come any other time, but not the summer. But anyway, Gustav Mahler was once music director here, and here was also where Wagner Monuments was performed outside of Bayreuth for the first time. But the more interesting building is right opposite of the opera house, and that's the Gewandhaus orchestra building.
This is actually the third Gewandhaus, which was opened in 1981. The long and glamorous history of the Gewandhaus, which I will tell you in a minute, happened mostly at the first and second Gewandhaus. When the light is on inside, we will be able to see a huge painting on the ceiling, Gesang vom Leben, or Song of Life by the Leipzig painter Sighart Geller. The painting was inspired by Mahler's Das Lied von der Erde.
Several important works were premiered here. Off the top of my head, Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto, Brahms' Violin Concerto, Brahms' German Requiem, Schubert Symphony No. 9, Wagner's Prelude to the Maisinger, and Mendelssohn's Scottish Symphony. This is also the home of one of the most prestigious orchestras in the world, the Gewandhaus Orchestra. And several notable conductors were principal conductors here, like Bert Wengler, Bruno Walter, Anthony Kirsch, Mendelssohn himself, and Ricardo Kay, and now it's Andres Nelson. So it's amazing.
We're now in Schiller Park, and here's the monument dedicated to the poet Friedrich von Schiller. The two naked mournful marble figures on each side are Sublimity, a man, and Sorrow, a woman.
When I hear the name Schiller, Leipzig isn't the first German town that comes to mind. It would be Weimar. But there's a reason why there's a statue of him here. And that's because during his time in Leipzig, he worked on Don Carlos, from which Verdi adapted into an opera. And also he worked on this infamous poem, An die Freude, or Ode to Joy, which inspired Beethoven to write his Symphony No. 9, the last movement. And Beethoven himself said that it's really difficult to set a great poem into music, because that means that the composer has to rise above the poet, and who could rise above Schiller?
Not so far from Schiller Monument, we can also find Schumann Monument here. This church houses the largest organ in Saxony and was built by the famous organ builder Friedrich Ladegast.
On my right is St. Nicholas Church, one of the oldest churches in Leipzig, and was also where Bach performed and where St. John Passion was premiered. And on my left is the Old Nicholas School, which Leibniz, the philosopher, and Wagner went to school here.
The German philosopher and mathematician Leibniz was born here. He was baptized in the St. Nicholas Church and went to St. Nicholas School or in this vicinity. Round the back of the Opera House, we can find one monument for Richard Wagner, who was born here in 1813. This bust is actually a replica of the one Max Klinger created for the unfinished monument at the other side of the town. This monument, although unfinished, is amazing in detail. In the front, we can see the 3 Rhine maidens from the Ring, symbolizing music, poetry, drama, hence hinting at Wagner's Gesamtkunstwerk. Here on the right, we can see Parsifal and Kundry, and on the left, we can see Siegfried, Mime, and the dragon.
So now we're going to Schumann's house, which is like away from everything else. So behind me is Schumann's house, and this was where Robert and Clara Schumann spent the first years of their married life together, and it's also where he wrote his first symphony. Schumann's house is in a really nice neighborhood. It's like away from everything else, and I don't think I would have stumbled upon it had I not read it in a book.
I then spent the rest of the day visiting cafes and enjoying the summer breeze on my last day in Leipzig. I am sad to leave, but will definitely be back for the next opera season.